And can you all give me share capability?
Sure. All right. Do we have them now?
Otherwise, we won't be able to see it. Oh, okay. Somebody's got to get water.
Claudia, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody else ready?
Yes.
Good
Yes.
morning. Good morning. Welcome to the 22nd year of VACRA. And I'd like to have a brief intro before I introduce Dana. When I came to Virginia, I was a lobbyist for Common Cause, and my task was to persuade the legislators to pass legislation that would allow Virginians to return bottles for a refund. Ask me how that went. The prime sponsor of that legislation tried for several years to get that bill passed. And I was just one of many lobbyists to try to get that going. And I think Dana may not have arrived by then. I'm not sure. But in the following years, I worked for the Office of Consumer Affairs. And I must say, there was nobody who was more approachable in the General Assembly than Dana Parsons was. You could approach her and ask her any question, and she was able to give you an answer or point you in the right direction. So we're very happy to have her speak to us this morning on how much Leading Age and Leading Age National has developed over the years to include the continuum of aging services. So Dana, for any of you who do not know her, has been in the Leading Age Virginia since 2003. She sets the association's public policy and advocacy direction, including all state and federal legislative and regulatory matters, and serves as an advisor to the president, CEO, and board of directors. She also serves as a spokesperson before the General Assembly, state and federal agencies, and the Virginia congressional delegation, and supports the Leading Age Virginia membership with regulatory and compliance issues related to that thing called the continuum of aging services. So please welcome Dana. And Dana, I give the screen over to you.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And let me apologize for you all having to reschedule your meeting. I am very sorry about that due to illness, but thank you for the opportunity to talk with you all today. During the 2024 General Assembly session, it was a very long session, 60 days. We were in a new building, which was wonderful. If you haven't seen the building, I highly recommend it. There were over 3,500 bills and resolutions that were introduced. The General Assembly adjourned on Saturday, March 9th. I apologize that I do not have April 2024 update here, but as we are still in the process of the governor taking action on legislation, my presentation's constantly updated. So I apologize for that, that I overlooked. As mentioned, Leading Age Virginia, we represent the entire continuum of aging services. So our focus at the General Assembly is on the entire continuum, which does have a tremendous impact on continuing care retirement communities, since there are a variety of care settings and continuing care retirement communities. When you've been to one, you've been to one. They're not all the same. Some offer other types of services such as home health or hospice, either internally or contract for those services. There is a CCRC in Williamsburg Landing, that provides adult day. So I am going to be going over legislation that impacts nursing homes, assisted living, home health, hospice, adult day, really the entire continuum. Now, with that said, there are so many bills that have been introduced at the General Assembly session. So I won't be able to go into all of those, but wanted to provide an overview today of some of the key issues that came up during session that impact aging services, including legislation that failed as well as legislation that passed. Because legislation that failed will either come up in another General Assembly session, either in the same form or a different form. So it's really important to be aware of all the type of legislation that's come up impacting aging services, even if it's failed legislation, because it could come up again. So I wanted to clarify some language that I'll be using throughout this presentation. So when I say that legislation has been continued to the 2025 General Assembly session, that means that the legislation is not moving forward in the current General Assembly session. It does not automatically mean that it will come up in the next session. It would have to be reintroduced during the next session, the 2025 General Assembly session, or a future session to be considered. I'm sorry, Penny, there's a little, I'm not sure if everyone's muted. I wanted to make sure everyone can hear me. I hear a little bit of background. I'll go on. Um, addressing some legislation that impacts the nursing home care setting. Senate Bill 579 was introduced, which addressed professional liability insurance. This was introduced by Senator Mark Obenshain, and it proposed requiring that the minimum amount of professional liability coverage for nursing homes is the amount per occurrence, and that such coverage would be non-eroding. The coverage limits are not reduced by legal cost. We found that this was really a concern that Senator Obenshain was having with a particular nursing home chain in his district. And so we worked with him, really could have an impact on our membership, but our members felt like this wasn't really needed, and we're hoping that Senator Obenshain will be able to get this issue resolved. At any rate, it's been continued over to the 2025 session, and if he does not get it resolved, then we may see it during the next session. So Senate Bill 661, which is electronic monitoring of resident rooms, introduced by Senator Christine Craig. So under current law, nursing homes are required to have a policy in place about whether electronic monitoring, this is cameras in resident rooms, is permitted. The monitoring is not mandatory. Under the current regulatory framework, if a nursing home chooses to permit electronic monitoring, there's a regulatory framework that we already have approved that deals with privacy and a number of other issues. This seems to be working well. So nursing homes are required to have a policy in place that says, we here at this nursing home do not permit electronic monitoring, or that we do permit it. And if they do permit it, there's a regulatory framework in place that will help them implement it. This bill proposed that all nursing homes be mandated to allow electronic monitoring devices in residents' rooms. We feel like the current framework is working very well. We know that there's some interest with a number of other legislators on this issue. So this has been continued to the 2025 session. So this one may be coming back up again during the next General Assembly session. House Bill 886. This was nursing home administrative sanctions introduced by Delegate Vivian Watts. This bill proposed amending administrative sanctions that may be imposed on certified nursing homes in relation to compliance with staffing requirements. It required that nursing homes that are subject to a corrective action plan be able to demonstrate compliance on a quarterly basis. It also changed from 3 to 2 the number of corrective action plans that a nursing home can have in place, and changed the effective date of legislation that was passed in 2023 to provide for staffing requirements for certified nursing homes from July 1st of 20, it's currently July 1st of 2025, and this proposed legislation changed that particular date to July 1st of this year. There's a lot happening on the federal level with CMS, with staffing requirements, with all that's been put in place in Virginia. It didn't really seem like this was something that we needed at this time, but this legislation was carried over and continued to the next General Assembly session. Another bill dealing with nursing home application requirements, which was introduced by Delegate Rodney Willett. This bill proposed requiring that all applicants for a nursing home licensure complete and submit an application on a form that's approved by the Department of Health. All applicants for nursing home license, whether new, renewal, or change of ownership, would have to complete and submit a department-approved application with the required fee. And for renewals, the application may be waived if there are no changes to the nursing home information. It proposed that all accompanying documentation and the required fee would be submitted annually prior to the licensure renewal deadline. And the applicant would be required to provide certain information about ownership interest in the nursing home, any pending litigation, real property related to the nursing home, secured notes, financial history of persons mentioned in the application, and contact information for specific persons. So this bill was all about transparency, and the intent of it, we felt like, was very positive. We were not contacted about this prior to the session. There were some issues about the drafting of it, and we feel like the intent of it is very positive, but we need to work with Delegate Willett to refine it. So this legislation has also been continued over to the next session. So one of the most positive measures that we were able to get through this General Assembly session to help support the workforce challenges that are happening in aging services is legislation for nursing home advanced medication aids. This legislation was introduced by Delegates Rosia Henson and Delegate Bobby Orrock. It passed the House and the Senate, and on April 2nd was approved by the governor. This is tremendously positive legislation that we are so pleased to share with you that we were able to get through. So I'm going to spend a little more time on this bill because this one has a really potential positive impact on continuing care retirement communities. So this bill directs the Virginia Board of Nursing to register advanced medication aids for a nursing home setting after they complete required education. It convenes a group of stakeholders to develop recommendations on these educational requirements. And these recommendations are due to the General Assembly, House, and Senate by November 1st of this year. Leading Age Virginia is named in the bill to serve on the work group. The Virginia Department of Health will then develop regulations to authorize advanced registered medication aids to administer medications to nursing home residents. This will go into effect on July 1st of 2025. Once all of the regulations have been developed, authorizing registered medication aids to administer, it will become effective. So this legislation, why was it needed? For several reasons. In Virginia, under current law, medication aids are only permitted to work in the assisted living setting. and administer medications to assisted living residents. It takes burdens off of the nurses to be able to have assisted living medication aids. Because a nursing home is a much more higher level of acuity, there's been concern that the population is very different. And so medication aids have not been permitted to administer medications in this setting. But we've learned a lot over the last several years about how medication aids are working well in the assisted living setting. So we've asked the delegates to put this legislation forward to help with the workforce challenges, but to also make sure that this legislation is a very unique setting to take into consideration. So what does that mean? It is not lifting the assisted living program and adapting it to the nursing home program. What it will do, it will register nursing home medication aids. So they will receive their own training, which is unique to the nursing home setting. So just have a couple of questions on here. I thought it would be helpful to go over, and happy to answer any questions about it. The first one is, will the registration process for medication aids working in an assisted living change? They will not. The medication aid program for assisted living will remain unchanged. Therefore, if a person is currently registered as a medication aid and works in an assisted living setting, this legislation will not require that person to take any additional steps regarding their registration. Will a registered medication aid for the assisted living setting be authorized to administer medications in a nursing home setting? No, these medication aids will only be permitted to administer medications to residents in assisted living. However, medication aids who are registered to administer medications in a nursing home setting will be automatically authorized to administer medications in an assisted living. So if you are a current medication aid in assisted living, you would have to undergo additional training and registration to administer medications in the nursing home setting. But if you are a nursing home medication aid, meaning you undergo this new process that's going to be worked on and become registered through the Board of Nursing, then you'll be automatically eligible to administer in assisted livings. So this is a really excellent bill. We hope that it will take some of the burden off of the nurses in the nursing home setting. It'll create a new option for a career ladder, and just really happy we were able to get this through. I'm going to move on to assisted living to talk about a couple of bills there. House Bill 511, out-of-state healthcare practitioners, temporary authorization to practice. Another bill attempting to help with workforce challenges. This bill adds assisted livings to the list of eligible healthcare employers for which a healthcare practitioner that's licensed or certified or registered in another state or the District of Columbia may temporarily practice for a 90-day period. This legislation passed the House and the Senate, and it's currently awaiting the governor's action by April 8th. So the governor has until April 8th to take action on legislation. The next bill was House Bill 1028, which is an affordable housing bill related to assisted living. This bill allows localities that have adopted an affordable housing program to require that in an application for a special exception or special use permit, affordable rental units may be included for any proposed development of assisted livings. This will apply to newly licensed assisted living and permit applications approved on or after January 1st of 2025. So essentially, this is not a mandate. This is going to allow localities to require an area that's adopted affordable housing to require assisted living to offer affordable assisted living. So this is also a really good measure. So we'll see what the governor does with this one. Then moving on to Adult Day. So Adult Day is a wonderful care setting in that it's an option for anyone who wants to be able to reside in their home, to be able to go to an adult day setting and then still be able to live in their home. But adult daycare for many years has really been affiliated with daycare settings that are associated with children. We really wanted to make sure that adult day centers are person-centered and focused on the adults. So we had two pieces of legislation that were put in, one on the House and one in the Senate, to remove the word care from the definition of adult day in the Code of Virginia to promote adult-centered care. So adult day centers may still choose to keep the word care in their organizational name, but in the Code of Virginia, the word care will be deleted, and everywhere that adult day is referenced in the Code of Virginia, it will now say adult day center rather than adult day care center. Small change, but a pretty big impact. So the governor did approve the House bill on March 26th. He approved the Senate bill on March 8th, and this legislation will go into effect on July 1st of this year. Now, Adult Day is such a tremendous support for the entire continuum of care. We see it. Williamsburg Landing has Adult Day. There are folks that reside in independent living that sometimes take advantage of Adult Day. It's a wonderful option, but the care that is provided is exceptional, but the reimbursement for those who are in need of Medicaid is extremely low. It costs an adult day anywhere from $100 to $125 a day to take care of a resident. Currently, under current law, the reimbursement is only $57.04 per day. When we were going through COVID, there were ARPA funds through the CDC that provided an extended temporary increase of 12.5% to the current adult day rate. Since then, every General Assembly, we've been advocating for a permanent rate, but at the same time, if we could not get a permanent rate, we were advocating for an extension of this temporary increase. We've been advocating that it would become permanent, and all indications that we're seeing in this current proposed budget is that it's what we like to say is fully baked, meaning it's in the budget unless someone takes it out. So depending on any changes to future line items and federal funding, it looks like our adult days are going to have this increase permanently, which will then take them up to around $67 a day, which does make a tremendous impact on adult days, but we'll be continuing to advocate for a higher rate of reimbursement. So hospice and palliative care, a major care area within the entire continuum of aging services. We had introduced during this General Assembly session House and Senate budget amendments to the governor's budget that proposed that the Department of Medical Assistance, DMAS, would convene a work group of stakeholders to study the feasibility of providing Medicaid reimbursement for palliative care services for individuals living with life-limiting conditions. So this legislation, actually budget amendments, would amend the governor's proposed budget. Unfortunately, it was not included in the House and Senate versions, It does not appear that this will be moving forward within the governor's budget and the final budget. But what we did, and that's okay because we wanted to raise the conversation. So sometimes, even though legislation may not necessarily have a chance of passing, it starts to raise the conversation. So what we asked for in this Medicaid palliative care study is to convene a meeting of stakeholders, develop an actuarial analysis of data from DMAS and the Virginia All Payers Claims Database, quantify potential supply and demand of palliative care providers and services, estimate cost of those services per member per month, develop a projected impact on the overall cost of care through reductions in avoidable hospitalizations, and then make recommendations regarding the need and feasibility of a palliative care benefit program in Virginia, what the most appropriate mechanism for making this change, whether it be through state legislation or through a federal waiver, and then coverage for Medicaid only or duly enrolled beneficiaries. So although this did not move forward, Leading Age Virginia is looking at opportunities that we could have with grant funding to continue to have this study happen this year so that we can have some recommendations for the 2025 session. A little bit, just as a segue, Leading Age Virginia, we were recognized at the General Assembly this year with House Joint Resolution 16 and Senate Joint Resolution 58, commending Leading Age Virginia's 50th anniversary. We were in the gallery, including a board member from Jenny Martin from Blue Ridge Hospice, where both the House and Senate recognized our contributions to aging services in the Commonwealth. So here's to 50 years of dedication, innovation, and positive aging for all Virginians. Many thanks to Delegate Bobby Orrock and Senator Schuyler Van Valkenburg for this recognition. So the General Assembly will be reconvening on April 17th to vote on the governor's vetoes and amendments. There's a lot of politics, a lot of things happening in the news right now regarding that. So we'll stay tuned and see what happens. We're very connected during this process. We have a lobbying firm, Spots Fane, that is on top of our issues politically and legislatively 24/7. We also have another lobbyist that helps us with hospice and palliative care issues. So we are very busy all during the year, although the General Assembly meets in January. Whatever comes out of a General Assembly session continues work throughout the year for us, being proactive about legislation that we need to identify to put forward, legislation that is likely to come up that could have a negative impact on aging services. So developing a strategy to defeat that, and then working with legislators all year long to answer their questions and raise visibility about aging services in Virginia. So thank you. I know that was a lot of information. Penny, you're on mute.
Yeah. Excellent overview. Thank you, Dana. Are there
Yeah.
any questions? We have time for a few questions.
Perhaps Dana could stop sharing her screen so we can see faces for the questions.
I think you go to chat. Chat. Okay, I'm on chat. Right there.
Ask if you're unmuted.
Am I unmuted? Apparently not.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Oh, I am. Good.
You're
I have a
unmuted.
question.
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Okay, I'm Charlotte Bailey at Cedar Field. Dana, thank you so much for all the wonderful information. I do have a question relating to CCRCs in general and us specifically. For over 3 years in Cedar Field, we have attempted to get one of our residents or resident representation on our board of directors. We have not yet been successful, and at the moment, we feel like we have been stonewalled. Uh, what can leading age do to help us and to generally help other CCRCs in their efforts?
I know that this has been an issue that we've spoken with VACRA about many times. I'm happy to share our position statement with you, CCRCs. We are not opposed to residents serving on CCRC boards, but feel that that is a decision that should be made by the CCRCs, and I'm happy to share our position with you.
What about what can leading age do to assist us in going forward with this? Is there anything leading age can do to assist us?
Well, I can share our position with you, and if you have any questions about that, we can talk about it offline.
What is your position?
Our position is that this is a community decision. We are not opposed to residents serving on CCRC boards, but CCRCs are businesses, and we do not feel that the Code of Virginia should mandate how businesses are operated.
Yes, I understand, because that bill was killed a year or so ago about mandating, and that's okay.
I would just encourage all CCRCs to, if you have any questions, about that, to talk to your leadership at your CCRC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Penny, you're on mute.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Our winter 2022.
Mhm.
Penny, you're on mute.
Our winter 2022 VACRA newsletter produced an entire edition devoted to getting a resident on the board of directors, including a policy statement then from Leading Age Virginia on their position on residents on boards of directors. And I think it was then, which mirrors Dana's recent statement, that they are not opposed to having residents on the board of directors, but they do not wish to see it legislated, passed through the legislation. But that is 2022. It's 2024 now. And residents on boards of directors is sweeping the country in CCRCs. And every state is considering this. And Sarah has a question.
Yes, Dana, I'm Sarah Coleman from Westminster at Lake Ridge. Have you ever invited a VACRA member to be on a leading age board or committee?
No, we have not.
Penny, you're muted again.
Thank you.
Les Berger, maybe you could ask your question.
Thank you. Dana, thank you for your update. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on at the federal level about staffing at CCRCs?
Staffing at CCRC. So what's happening on a federal level is that the federal government is looking at a staffing standard for nursing homes. So it is not CCRC specific. It would be a staffing standard that's being considered for the nursing home. So the only impact would be on the nursing home care setting.
Thank you. I have another question, if I may, Dana. I understand that the memory care unit at Cedar Crest in New Jersey was able to get the memory care considered part of skilled nursing. And I'm assuming by that, then all the fees and the staffing then would be similar. Do you have any information about that?
I don't. I'm sorry. I really came prepared today to talk with you about the 2024 session, so I do not have any information about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dana? Dana, we thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. I know we waited for 2 weeks for it, but it was well worth it. And we thank you for your comprehensive PowerPoint presentation. That really helps us with looking at all the changes that may be forthcoming this year and next. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Good, thank you.
Hi, Joan. I wanted to wave to you.
All right, let's see if Joan got on. Let's move ahead to the next portion of the business meeting. And my job is to introduce the new officers. And before we begin the actual business, I'd like to introduce the new officers who were elected in October. And I'd like them to raise their hands as I name them, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but their pictures and short biographies were in the January newsletter or the spring newsletter on page 3. And we're very happy that this election produced some excellent talent for VACRA. And I've been very worried about succession and who is in the pipeline to take over the next roles in leadership. So we have number 1, the first person on page 3 is Betty Chrisman, who comes to us from the Green Spring community in Springfield. As vice president, she brings a significant body of experience from work in the Department of Defense overseas and yeoman's work on Green Springs Residents Council. Betty, would you raise your hand so folks can know who you are? Thank you. She also serves on the VACRA board and on the Government Relations Committee. Next, second in line is Martha Cole Glenn. Martha, raise your hand, please, up in the other corner. From Cedarfield in Henrico County as Government Relations Vice President. She brings extensive experience as a lobbyist at the federal government and heads up the largest VACRA community in the state. Re-elected is Claudia Blake, who's our mastermind behind the scenes. And Claudia, will you wave? Everyone who has dealt with the Zoom glitches with this meeting has called Claudia from all hours, day and night, and we thank her for it. It's hard to believe she has to stand for re-election, but she did in October. And she is our VACRA treasurer from Godwin House, Bailey's Crossroads in Arlington. And she is the mastermind behind the changes in our website, including the transition from us doing all our work on management and membership management to using the Club Express software management system. So these are our new officers for the year, and I'm very pleased with the results of this October's election. Okay, so let's move on to the next session. Our secretary, Marty Ahrens, has resigned. And due to her illness, she no longer can continue performing the work of secretary. So I asked Susan Hinderleiter if she would present the minutes for today for the January meeting from last year. Susan, would you go ahead and present the January board minutes?
Okay,
Everybody should have a copy.
everybody should have a copy. They were released quite a while ago. Are there any changes anybody sees need to be made in this copy? In this set of minutes?
They were attached to the meeting announcement, Friday, January 26, 2024. Hearing no changes or additions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Sylvia, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Raise your hand. Aye. Thank you so much. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is the financial report by Claudia, our treasurer, who will share her screen with you.
Here we are with the budget versus the actual through the first quarter of our fiscal year. And we are in the hole, which is, or actually we're not, the actual is not, we budgeted in the hole, but we are, we have $634 in the black. And it's going along just as there's no surprises in this. We've just had the one newsletter and membership keeps coming in. It keeps climbing slowly, but we were up 10 new members just in the last month. So, and renewals keep coming in. So that's because you guys are out there, those who are directors and membership chairs of your communities are doing a good job of following up on that. Over here, we can see that while we budget in the hole, this is basically where we were before, showing the $600 in the black, but we still have $38,000 in the bank. So we can still afford to subsidize the dues, which is what we continue to do. We have done since we went over to the Club Express system. And I don't see any problems. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Claudia.
Wait.
Wait.
I just
Question?
that we should give everybody a big hand that we're actually positive and are for the first time in a long time. So congratulations to all the directors and everybody who is participating, and the membership keeps going up, and that's everybody's accolades. So good.
And while we're doing that, let me welcome Patricia Coe from Windsor Mead, who is joining the board as a director for Windsor Mead. And she's going to roll up her sleeves and work with folks there to re-energize Windsor Mead. So welcome, Patricia. Wave your hand, please. I don't know if she can hear me. There you go. Both hands. Thank you. Welcome. Good. All righty. Anything else, Claudia? No.
I don't think so.
Betty Crispin, let's move on with what's keeping you occupied most of the time.
Well, I've got a lot that's keeping me occupied, but what I'm working on for VACRA are the governing documents for the organization. Penny had asked me to look at these and update them, and I'm in the process of of reviewing historical documents that we have for those already and establishing historical files, because I think that's a very important aspect of having these two governing documents. I'm currently working on the bylaws and also the policy and procedures manual. And once I finish the draft, they'll be reviewed by the executive board and I think out for review once they have agreed with what I'm placing in there. So look forward to some changes.
Any questions for Betty? All right, let's move on ahead to Martha Cole, who will give her report on government relations.
Good morning. I became chair of VACRA Legislative Committee on January 1. I renamed the committee Government Relations to reflect that our purview includes agencies as well as the General Assembly and Congress. Given the small size of the committee and VACRA as compared to other advocacy groups, I've been establishing alternative ways to maximize the impact of our goals rather than just taking positions on legislation. First, following our success with the State Corporation Commission to improve their website and the resident complaint line, we have been monitoring the number of complaints that have been filed. And we will give advice on how to file them as people want to go through the established process. And I want to emphasize there is an established process. We will also be looking at the SEC controlling statute to see if further improvements can be made. Second, while we are not actively seeking state legislation requiring management companies to have residents on boards, we are discussing whether the introduction of such a bill again will help our goal. Third, we have been using the newsletter to educate members on how to make a difference with legislators. And beginning with the next newsletter, I'm going to try to have a section each time on an issue. Next time will be a pro and con on right to die or assisted suicide legislation that has been before the General Assembly. Fourth, while we do not plan to make the use of email blasts all the time to ask you to contact legislators, we plan to start using it to present issues to you so you can make your own decisions about them and be better informed. Fifth, on the federal level, we are monitoring several efforts to make cost-saving changes in the Medicare programs, and there are efforts to do so. And we will be letting you know about the process we're going through. I'm really hesitating because we're tiny and what's going on is very big, but we will try to make an influence by insisting that members of Congress hold hearings on these issues. I encourage you with a background in legislation to inquire about joining the committee. We could use you. Thank you.
Any questions for Martha? Moving on ahead to the President's report, update on NACRA. I will be giving my own report on my 3-year term ending April 30th on NACRA. And in the new business, Chuck will give his report on what he's been working on NACRA. As the lone state president routinely attending meetings on the NACRA board, my 3-year term of office ends on April 30th. There is another state president, but illness has prevented him from attending meetings on a routine basis. During this 3-year period, I served as secretary on the executive committee, prepared the minutes for each board meeting, chaired the 2023 nominating committee, telephoned each current and past president of the 9 state associations to recruit board members, revised the bylaws, devised and drafted a strategic plan, conducted a 2-day orientation with the NACRA treasurer for new board members, and worked with the board member expanding the strategic plan into work groups based on these themes. And these themes are in 10 work groups. I repeat, my term ends on April 30th. New board members take over. Dan Ancona, Betty Chrisman from Green Spring, Charlie Finley from Lakewood. Current board members are Chuck Webb from Covenant Woods and Sarah Coleman from Westminster at Lake Ridge. I wish them well in their work on NACRA. Let's go ahead to unfinished business at 11:15. We're ahead of ourselves. Oh, good. Chuck, can you share with the group what work you're doing on NACRA work groups?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good.
Thank
I've been having trouble with my computer here. So
you.
I was
Yeah.
asked to give an update on NACRA. The next NACRA newsletter, Lifeline, will be published in June. Sarah Coleman and Charlie Finney are helping Jim Haynes with that. Changes to the NACRA bylaws will be presented on April 30th for the members to consider. The changes concern the nominating process for members. Chair Dan Seeger will contact Congress asking about the letter that we sent requesting a conference on aging. We haven't heard anything, and from the recent congressional hearing that they held, I think they're more interested in assisted living. Some of the assisted living facilities have paired with nursing homes and are seeking to compete with CCRCs on that basis, which is an interesting development. Jim Finney is leading a group that's examining independent living residents in Pennsylvania who are volunteering in nursing homes and working with ombudsmen. That's an interesting type of volunteer activity. Since our last meeting, I presented several talks on the privatization of Medicare to Brown University Geriatrics Department in Providence, to Lakewood and Cedarfield CCRCs in Richmond, to Windsor Mead and Williamsburg. And later this month, I'll speak to Oak Crest, north of Baltimore. Penny accompanied me to the Windsor Mead meeting. Medicare Advantage companies are health maintenance organizations, HMOs, run by private companies for profit. Unlike health insurance, they pass money to shareholders rather than keeping it for the sickest seniors. The sickest, most expensive 5% of traditional Medicare beneficiaries, 1.7 million, need an average of over $100,000 a year for their care. Medicare Advantage companies deny them care, between 1.5 and 2 million denials every year. And this leads to an excess of 10,000 deaths among seniors every year. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Chuck? Chuck is in the middle of a 3-year term on NACRA, and he's specializing in Medicare and the privatization of Medicare. And I recruited him and bent his arm. I felt it was really important that he has a national platform to speak to this issue, and not just to speak to this issue from Virginia's platform. Next item, both Martha and I have been members of the multi-state discussion group. And the multi-state discussion group consists of 10 states. And this was a group that began in 2022 by Washington State. They felt it was important to have a roundtable of states just meeting quarterly to talk about issues that concern them. And the states are California, Connecticut, New Jersey, Florida, Massachusetts, Maryland, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and of course the organizer, Washington State. It's a pretty loose group, but the agenda items are sent in advance. I've learned a great deal from this group. The most important thing I've learned is the importance of a variety of people at the table. discussing items that are of importance to each of them. What we've talked about in the past year is legislation covering prescription drug benefit reductions, medical aid in dying, where CCR regulation is housed. It's fascinating to see how states have placed the regulatory authority for CCRCs in different sections of state government. Washington State just sent us a 35-page slide presentation of all the changes they want from their state government in their CCRC regulation. Fascinating. They have been tired of trying to nitpick and nickel and dime the changes each legislative session. So they packed together all of the things they want into one set of 35 pages. And I just shared that with our Government Relations Committee. And chief amongst them is, of course, residents on the board and board transparency, among things, and refunds of entrance fees. Residents' rights, where are they spelled out in the law? To my surprise, Virginia's code, which spells out residents' rights, was a shining example of the way to do it right. And in many cases, I've been able to share some of the materials we worked on in Virginia, and we've been able to shine our star a little bit more in this group. Which states have lobbyists? We've learned from people who have lobbyists what it costs, what their lobbyists do. Does it threaten their 501c3 designation, and how they get around that if they do? And also membership practices. One of the things I've learned from all of these states is they all share some of our common problems. They cannot get a full list of all the CCRCs in their state. Usually it's leading age national that keeps that list from them. Usually it's nobody can really supply a full list of all the CCRCs from their regulatory agencies. They have sets of CCRCs who don't think they need any representation. The same issues we face in Virginia. Many states have multiple CCRCs, and yet the percentage of members in their state association is slim. They face the same issues as we do. How do you persuade people that they need representation? And I come back to my original intent for joining these groups. We have a national set of maybe 2,000 CCRCs, but only 50 states have formed state associations. Who represents the rest of the states? And they are floating out there without representation. And that leads to the importance of the National Association for Continuing Care Residents Association, NACRA. And I've spent the last 3 years trying to build that effort up and making sure that, it's strong enough to reach their constituents. Also, membership practices. We've learned from the other states what they do to try to recruit members and join their associations. And they all share the same difficulties we do. How do they present programs on their campuses? How do they deal with new residents? We're all pretty much alike in that. So I will be serving on that roundtable until the end of the year when my term as president ends. So also, 2 more things. Illinois and Colorado have contacted us on the multi-state group and asked for assistance in helping them form state associations. This is good. And we've been able to provide them with some of the materials that VACRA has developed. And I'm very happy about that. So we'll hear more from them shortly. Any questions? The next meeting for the multi-state group is, I think, in May 14th or the 21st. And the 2 people that attend are the president and the head of the Government Relations Committee. Next item, nominating committee. Did I see a question?
I was simply applauding.
Thank you. Thank you. I've really enjoyed being on this multi-state group. It's helped us spread how well VACRA is doing and how much in the leadership and heading the parade we are. And it has surprised me. We've sent our newsletter to every one of them, and including the winter 2022 one, which I referenced in our talk with Dana on how to get a resident on the board. People act like they've never seen that before. And of course, we've sent that before. But when we did it, it was meant to be a how-to manual. So every newsletter we send out, we send it to them and they share it across the country. Other questions? Nominating committee for fall elections. I'm sorry to be taking up so much time, but the bylaws point me to my duties. Our bylaws require that the president name up to 3 members of the association, or 2 to 3, to the nominating committee to elect the VACRA president and secretary in the fall, at the fall meeting. And I have asked past President Susan Hinderleiter of Windsor Mead to serve as the chair of the nominating committee, and Naomi Willie, a director from Covenant Woods, to also serve on that committee. The bylaws allow for 1 additional seat if they so choose. That would be up to the committee. And the president has nothing to do with the committee procedures from now on. So they will be meeting over the summer, creating a timeline for using our email, our website, our newsletter, and any other materials they can to create the notices needed to advertise the publications, the job description for president and the job description for secretary. So in terms of our bylaws, we are right where we're supposed to be in terms of the election routine in the fall, president and secretary. Any questions? Reports from communities. Somebody else gets to talk. Joan Lewis, unmute yourself and you got one for us.
Yeah, first of all, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, you're on.
Joan, if you've got both your phone and your computer on for this, that's why we're getting the feedback.
Okay.
You got to leave the meeting on one of those devices.
Shall we go to somebody else while she signs back in?
Westminster and Lake Ridge. Are you ready?
Sarah.
Well, Priscilla, are you going to start first? And then I have 2 short reports.
Certainly. For one thing, I'm just going to comment on a few things that were covered earlier in this discussion. We have had a resident on the board of directors of our overreaching organization, which covers 3 different CCRCs. We've had him on the board for many years. But there was also a discussion on memory care. Now, we have many volunteers that are in our memory care daycare, which we call Ingleside Engaged. And the people there take care of such things that they have certain talents for, the volunteers, such as singing, such as game playing, such as public speaking, people who have those skills. But we also have volunteers that serve in many other capacities. Many volunteers teach classes to the other residents, myself included. And then there are volunteers that do direct assistance to people who need it, such as we have people who are called transportation angels. These people push the wheelchairs of people who need it to go to activities, to go to concerts, go to meetings, and other such things. Then there are people who help with various other parts of the organization. For instance, when I was in rehabilitation for a while after my second knee operation, we had people that were candy stripers down there in long-term care. And they helped me so much because the nurses are quite busy, of course, as are the rehabilitation people. So the candy stripers came around and helped me by carrying on conversations with me, asking if there was anything I needed. I mentioned at one time that my sister was in memory care in the same floor where I was. And they brought her over for a visit with me. They just pushed her wheelchair over, and my sister and I had a nice visit. And I'm sure it helped my sister to know that I hadn't deserted her. I was just in the unit myself for rehabilitation. And speaking of my sister, they were so kind to me in making me feel better about my sister, especially when she went into hospice. As I said, the hospice people and the nurses were just very busy, but I could talk to the candy stripers about my feelings regarding my sister being in hospice. I gained so much from them when I was in that area, and I'll never forget it.
Okay, Westminster has two other quick reports. One is on Earth Day. For 15 consecutive years, WLR has celebrated Earth Day with the traditional cleanup activities and the planting of 2 trees. In more recent years, we have expanded our activities to an entire week with guest speakers, instructional videos, movies about pollution and conservation, and tours of new landscaping and gardens on the campus. This year, we have a new large butterfly pollinator garden. We have National Wildlife Federation and Audubon Society through Audubon at Home certified with plaques, which are proudly displayed on the campus. As far as your question about garden to table, Westminster at Lake Ridge has a community garden that consists of 25 plots. Presently, the produce from these plots is not given to the vendor who runs our kitchens. However, these 25 gardeners routinely share their tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, and beans with their very grateful friends and neighbors. And that's our report.
If you can hear
Sarah?
me, I can do Goodwin Living now.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Joan.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about stronger memory. Goodwin Living President and CEO Rob Liebrig created Stronger Memory Brain Health Curriculum after his mother was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. Unable to find any standard treatment for her condition, Rob developed a program designed to stimulate the brain's prefrontal cortex, which governs our ability to retrieve memories. Participants spend just 20 to 30 minutes a day engaged in simple reading aloud and writing activities and quickly completing easy math problems. The goal is to delay or slow the symptoms of mild cognitive impairment or early stage dementia. Participants notice improvement in their ability to focus, find misplaced items, and remember conversations. Goodwin Living and the Maryland Department of Aging have partnered to launch the program for older adults in Maryland. Fairfax County Department of Aging is now using our Stronger Memory program, and we are doing more research with George Mason University. We are now partnering with the Brain Exercise Initiative to offer 30-minute online check-ins for participants every weekday. The goal is to provide a place where one can connect with others who are facing memory challenges or are interested in improving their brain health. BEI is a nationwide intergenerational program in which university student volunteers connect with seniors to do brain exercises together. Social connections are an essential part of brain health. Our Goodwin Living Foundation pays for a brain health staff member who works at Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads and Goodwin House Alexandria. And supported by the foundation, you can download a free digital workbook or order a printed copy by using the Stronger Memory link at goodwinliving.org. goodwinliving.org. This link also provides access to extensive information and videos about the program. Thank you.
Naomi?
So Joan, can you send that link to everybody?
I'm happy to send it to Penny, or I'm happy to have Claudia send it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have the article. I'll send it to everybody. John, might that go in the newsletter as well?
Of course.
We've covered a couple of good articles from your folks on your memory support program, and this seems to me to be a good extension of that discussion and conversation.
So is it I'm still confused. Is this something I can download as an app, or is this private to the CCRC where you live?
It's private to the CCRC where we live, but you can download it from the link for free.
Okay, but that just gives you and if you wanted to start one, then how do you do that?
Well, there are a lot of videos and information on the website that will help you do that.
Thank you. Okay, I'll do our report. So this is Naomi Willie, and I represent Covenant Woods. The first question was, does your CCRC have a program that helps others? Recently, and I can't remember who asked for it, but one of the directors here asked to see my monthly schedule of who is speaking at Covenant Woods. So I'm going to share that to you. Let's see. First, I have to go to share. Can you allow me to share? Claudia?
Claudia, you're muted.
Can't hear you.
Nope, you should be able to do it now.
Okay, share screen. Okay, and then desktop. Okay, and then I'm gonna open that one. What? Can you see it?
No, not yet.
You pull it up, but then there's a button that says share.
Oh. Thought I did that. Let's try that again. Okay, desktop. I go to desktop, right?
Wherever your document is stored.
Okay. Desktop. And then I go to share. If not, I will just send it, but.
But Naomi, you might want to speak about the most recent program, which was on plastics in the sea, microplastics, which was extraordinary.
So then
well, you push the greens share, you have whatever it is up on your desktop, and then there's another button that says share. It's not on the bottom, it's part of your desktop, I think.
Oh, share. I'm so sorry. Duh.
Here we go.
Okay, now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So each month we have a planning group that gets together to include a variety of speakers. We started with our CFO for the first of the year, and then we had the director of nursing come. That was just fabulous to understand her role and at Covenant Woods. The third month was microplastics, and I know one of the CCRCs gave us the name of Mara Walters, who came to Covenant Woods and spoke of microplastics. She will come to all of your CCRCs. She is a dynamic speaker, young, activist, and is helping to spread the word of what's happening. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I can go talk about Earth Day. So Earth Day, we do gigantic bubbles. It includes, okay, so then how do I get rid of you? I'm gonna, oh yeah, I share again. Okay, new share. Okay.
You just have to close this one and open the other one. You don't have to do the share screen again.
Right. Okay, we're gonna let go of that one, and then we're gonna go here. So this includes, and here you go. This includes all levels of care. So for 1 hour outside of Covenant Woods, we cordon off part of the street, as well as it's a large grassy knoll. And there are about, and Chuck can talk to that, but we have I can send you the link of how to make these, the juice to make the bubbles, but they are about 3 feet in diameter. And it was one of the most exciting events that we've had because it includes everybody. So we had memory care, assisted, and healthcare come down, and everybody participated in one way and either watched or came and actually helped blow bubbles. So it was that was exciting and to me, and so that was something that we did for Earth Day. And then but the last one was farm to table. So the okay, I can undo, I can turn on off. Okay. Okay, so how do you stop?
If you want to stop sharing, there's a button on the bottom. There you go.
So, so for the farm to table, we have a very vibrant farm to table program. They hired 2 gardeners to come and even expand what we have. And now we are growing enough, and the farm to table manager said out loud to everybody, this is the year that we will not pay for tomatoes. So that's exciting, and we are hoping that's to happen. And but again, that both the director of dining who started that program, as well as the current manager, are coming. If you saw in June, to talk about the farm to table program. A lot of people aren't aware, so that's why our chapter focuses for both people that actually work here, that people just have no idea of what they do at the director level or any of those things. And so we mix that with outsiders such as we're having the James River folks come and talk about the sturgeon population that goes up and down the James River. So it's exciting as we're growing Covenant Woods, and I think that the spreadsheet helps solidify and helps us plan in advance, and so we take advantage of any of the speakers that you guys have done, because we will, take them and add them into our list. So we'll take any of those. So that's why I was curious about this memory program, because maybe someone from, since you said hired someone, they could come talk to us. So just curious. That's my report.
Thank you, Naomi. Any other questions? Any other reports from any other community?
Cedarfield has a report, Penny.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Sylvia.
So first of all, good morning, everybody. Welcome to spring at last. We have really great news at Cedarfield. We now have 206 members.
Wow.
5 years ago, there were less than 10 members. So what we've done lately is every 6 months, we have a tea or a coffee for potential new members. And the last one we had 20 folks attended, and we had 8 new members. We'll have another one of those in a few months as well. And by the way, we do have community gardens, and we have a plethora of tomatoes every year. And most of our resident gardeners are very kind, and they share their tomatoes with fellow residents. Here at Cedarfield VACRA, we feel that our energies are really twofold. First of all, and I want to say foremost, our energies have been to try and get someone on our parent company board. As you all know, we've talked about it so much, and Charlotte Bailey has done an incredible job to try to move that effort forward. The other big effort for us here is a value that VACRA holds, and that is education for all residents. To that end, we've had some very exciting speakers, not the least of which was our dear friend, and I'm looking at him right now, Chuck Webb, who came to Cedarfield just a few weeks ago and did give us his wisdom and expertise on Medicare and Medicare Advantage. So thank you, Chuck. The other thing, we had 2 really outstanding speakers. One talked to us about scams and frauds. Another person, we've had other speakers, but our own staff gave us a wonderful presentation on health and wellness. And that's very, very valuable. Our programs are very well attended, not just by VACRA members who live here, but all residents, because they've come to look to VACRA and VACRA programs as a place to learn. And that about does it for us at Cedarfield. We will continue to make a big push for membership. We have a large resident population here, and we keep getting new people. So we are working very hard always to raise that membership level, and in addition, find people who will work and take on jobs at VACRA. It just doesn't get done by a few people. Thanks again. Thank you, Penny, for everything you've done for us.
Well, thank you. You're the stars of VACRA. Congratulations on the membership growth. Any other items? letting you know that the next newsletter is planned for May 1st to 15 for receiving contents. Several of you have mentioned projects that would make great newsletter articles. And I'm not going to go and bend your arms, but if you have some photos and some text to go along with the photos, or a whole entire story with photos, that would be helpful. And so, please get them into me before the end of May 15th, and we'll start work on the summer newsletter. Are there any other items for unfinished business? Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit, now we're talking about the newsletter. I thought the last newsletter was really well done and highlighted the fact that the Newsweek story was involving a lot of the members of the Virginia NACRA. In particular, three of them were 3 of the 15 that were listed in that top 250 survey results. 15 of them were from Virginia, and then 3 were actually VACRA members. So I think we did a nice job. The question came up, though, was for us, why wasn't Green Spring listed in there? And so we did some digging into that story a little bit, and I'd have to say that I was impressed with the way Newsweek ran it. They had a very competent survey group to study that stuff. And when it was done, they published the Newsweek chose who to publish. Well, it turns out that what they do is they go to the largest ones in that were involved in the survey, which, by the way, were done in 20 states. They picked the states that had the most CCRCs in them, and their survey was well done, but it seemed like some were missing. And so we found out that what they do is that they have what they call a publications package that they offer to larger CCRCs in order to allow them to use the Newsweek logo and use it in their promotional materials. Those promotional packages cost anywhere from $14,000 to $22,000. And some communities decide it's not worth the money. Like Green Spring right now is 96% full. They really didn't need any additional advertising, so they chose not to adopt or pay the fee for the promotional package. And consequently, I didn't appear in the 250 list. Yeah, so that's something that other communities may want to be aware of, and particularly these large national magazines like Newsweek. It's great publicity, but you got to pay the fee to play. So it's sort of another the rest of the story, if you will. We're going to write up a little article about that because some of our residents were wondering, hey, why weren't we in there? Yeah,
It's true.
So
yeah, Claudia
anyway,
also researched
we
it.
followed up as well with the corporate people, and they followed up with the marketing people, and we never received anything. So we probably would not have, because we're also full, basically. We would not have, I can't imagine they would have spent the amount of money, but not everybody was even asked. So it's not, it's a survey, but it's sort of for what it's worth. It's for those who participated. That's the survey and the ranking, and it's great that we had 3 communities that here that did well in the survey, came up in the top 15. But as you say, Dan, it has its limitations, and we need to know the frame of reference.
And it reminds me of the adage, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Bayer. Well, how many doctors did you ask? And it's usually 10.
True.
And, for those of us with PhDs in the social sciences, that's tattooed on our foreheads. You have to be very careful with your statistics and be able to prove, what you're asserting. So that's the backstory to this survey.
Right.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments?
Yes, be sure to go see the solar eclipse.
Oh, where can I get sunglasses?
Well, they're available many different places. You can just look online. Even your library is probably giving them out. And
Oh, yay.
all of the United States will be able to see at least a partial solar eclipse, even if you're
Okay.
not in the center line.
Well, I'll go to my Walmart right down the road or my Publix. I hope they'll have them. This is so
Yes.
exciting too.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Penny, the Mechanicsville Library right up the street from us will have them starting tomorrow.
Oh, yippee. Grab one for me, Sally. Thank you. All right, thank you. Anyone else have anything to offer? Our next meetings, the summer board meeting, July 26th. And the nominating committee will be working throughout the summer and you'll be hearing from them throughout the year, and they will be seeking a replacement for me. I'm horrified to think I can be replaced, and for our secretary. And Marty Aarons is on the call, and we want to recognize her contribution because she jumped in 2 years ago to serve as secretary for VACRA. And we hope that she will have good health from now on. So there's Marty with her face. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. What is the time for adjourn? 11:30. Bingo.
11:30.
Oh, terrific. Thank you all so much. Good meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.